Let's go.
Okay. Hi guys, I'm Andrew Fischel. A lot of you know me as Cyrus of Chaos, and today I'm here with Tsvetelina Hristova, Jen Oldham, and Ariana Klinkov, and we're going to be talking to you guys. Hello. And we're going to be talking to you guys about a bunch of different things. Most of the questions I'm going to be asking are questions that you guys submitted to me on Instagram, and we're just going to jump right in. So, do you guys want to each introduce yourselves and just talk about what made you become a coach in the first place? Why did you choose Sabre over the other two weapons? And, where your club is located. So,
Okay.
Svetlana, you
Can I
want to
start?
start?
Should I start first? Are you guys okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so my name is Tsvetelina Hristov, and I used to fence foil when I was younger, up to 14, and then I switched to Sabre. Well, I should have said, where's my club? Our club is in Sacramento, California, Premier Fencing Academy. I've been fencing Sabre since I was 15, so pretty much I cannot coach foil. I honestly don't feel even anything anymore in foil. Um, I always knew I'm going to be a coach once I stop with my fencing like career or whatever you want to name it, because I was missing so many things from me being coached, the mentality, the confidence, all these kind of things. So I knew I want to kind of pass it in a better way to the athletes, the next generations. And why Saber? Well, I feel like the weapons are by personality, and I'm always gonna say that the Saber is the craziest people, and I'm one of those. I think we're not cases. And then I think the foil, they're more calmer, and the epi are one of those people where I'm just loving like how they're super calm and super chill. And yeah, I just cannot do epi. I just can't because I'm gonna lose it. So yeah, that's my story.
Nice. Jen, you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Jen Oldham, and I'm in Durham, North Carolina. How did I get started? UNC fencing, Ron Miller. I came in a gym class about midway, and that team, if you've seen it, is energetic, fun, social, and I wanted to keep going.
So you
And
started as a PE class in college.
yes, I started as a PE class in college.
Oh, that's cool.
I wanted to keep doing it. And at the time, there was something called the Coaches College that Alex and Elizabeth Beguenet of Duke University led, but many other coaches were involved. And I went there and spent 2 weeks studying foil and saber, and that's where I met Ed Corfanti. And I ended up working as his beginner instructor and also training. Had no idea what I was walking into. Competed internationally, taught and learned along beside him. Mariel Zagunis and I went to our first World Cup together. And then I wanted to keep learning and growing. I was getting my master's degree in counseling psychology. When I went to Oregon, I didn't think that I would be a high-level competitive fencer. I thought I was going there to learn how to coach. As I practiced psychology, sitting in a room with one person, I knew I couldn't do that, that I could make more of a difference moving, interacting, teaching. Had my first son, moved back to North Carolina, where I started Mid-South Fencers Club with a bunch of committed people in North Carolina, and that's been about 12 years ago. So we've been growing here since.
Wow, nice. Ariana?
I am clearly the grandmother of this group. I started fencing saber before there were World Cups in saber, and the U.S. had no Division I saber. And I started coaching because Joe Paczynski, who was a great figure, was energetically teaching all three weapons, and he kept teaching me all of them. I was roped in by Sarah Price, who got me to fence at a qualifier in saber, and I somehow managed to qualify for the U.S. National Championships, which at that time was just Division II. I came in top 25, competed with a group of women, and won a national championship, and I was just terrified to let them down, so I fenced really well. But that hooked me, and I kind of became part of a real movement to legitimize women's saber in the U.S., fought to get a Division I national championship, and became one of the first 8 women to have an A rating in saber in the U.S. I also was lucky enough to travel to the first ever Women's Saber World Cup in Foggia. So I started sort of ground up. At the same time as I was fencing, I started teaching some after school programs in Boston, and was lucky enough to find students so good that I wanted to learn more. So I started going to Yuri and anybody who I could watch and writing notes in a book, because nobody really wanted to actually teach me how to coach at that time. But Yuri was absolutely happy to talk to me and to let me watch. He even hired me at camps, which was amazing. And I was lucky enough to have great students. Jeff Spear, Daria Schneider, Valentin Stoller all came from my first club, Prise de Fer. And then I went on to coach collegiately, and I really loved it. Coaching collegiate fencing for me was a passion, because it wasn't just teaching individuals, which I love too, but it was teaching people how to work as a team, how to communicate, how to lead while they did this incredible sport. And so I went from Tufts University to Wellesley College, and now I'm at Cornell University, and I absolutely love it. So.
Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I know that more so than the other two weapons, Sabre is constantly changing. Mm-hmm. Not just rules changes, but like we've also had 2 timing changes since I started fencing, and the interpretation changes all the time. How do you guys each change your coaching style based on those constantly evolving factors in our sport? Jen, do you want to start this one?
Yeah, I mean, can I start first?
Yeah, go ahead.
I keep kicking my desk. This is what actually, it was so significant. I remember when they changed the timing. The kids have to adjust, and whoever's doing a lot of preparations, it affects them definitely. But the middle was the biggest one, because we had those fencers that are winning national championships or whatever medals, and all of a sudden when they did the change, it took for some of them so long to adjust that actually they lost the confidence. They weren't medaling. It was from being here to being here, and all of a sudden they were trying to adjust, and then they changed the rules back to the previous one, and then they were struggling in another season. So we have 3 or 4 of the top fencers that struggled for 2 years. Those are 2 seasons, and that's right before they go to college. And I honestly feel that hurt them on a long way. That definitely hurt them, because once your confidence is out, it's out. I mean, you might be a world champion yesterday, and today everybody started beating you. Your mentality is completely changing. So it's more like, for when something like this happens, and I'm always trying to tell everybody, this affects everybody. And yeah, for some, it might be a little bit easier than others. You have to find a way to work through it. You got to push through it. It's like, I mean, it's almost like same thing in a regular life. They're telling us from tomorrow, the chicken is the worst thing in the world to eat. And people are trying to figure out how I can live my life without eating chicken. But it's more like how you're going to tell them that it's going to be okay. There's got to be other ways. And one of the other things is, like, I remember when Becca Ward was still fencing, she was one of my absolute icons for fencing. She's just super, super smart girl. And I remember I was watching her at one of the finals of the World Championships before she quit. And she had some issues with the knees, I remember. And sometimes she had those interviews where they were asking her, well, how do you manage this? And that's because she wasn't the most athletic at the moment, just because of her knees. And in Sabre, we have to be very quick. So she said, you got to find a way. So she was super smart girl, very good with the hands. So I think you got, well, a lot of drills. You got to do a lot of drills with them, and they have to find what they feel comfortable with. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And there's nothing else. You got to put the work.
So just work on their confidence and talk about like situational bouting for the specific rules change or interpretation.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Who wants to go next?
Oh, I'll take this. This is my favorite question of all time. So Yuri Gelman once asked me, he said, Ariana, you're a successful coach. Why do you keep refereeing? And I said, well, nobody in the world except as a referee is going to pay me to go watch the best fencers in the world fence and watch the best coaches in the world coach and see how the fencing is evolving continually at the highest level. So as of someone who came from, in addition to being a coach, being a high-level referee, it was very obvious to me how you had to adapt to how the calls changed on an instant, as a referee and as a coach, how you needed to adapt to how the game changed. So,
because those things can change over the course of a season, right?
Exactly. And so what I did was, from the minute I started coaching a young athlete, I talked about this. I would talk about, the minute they came to me, part of the instruction would be, this could change. There's more than one way to do this. There's different distances. Let's look at video. So I think the most important part of this thing for me was to create a situation where the athletes felt this was normal and that they knew it was going to be something they had to adjust to all the time.
I like
and
that.
It was simply part of their training because I wanted it to be the normal for them rather than to be something that shocked them. So we talked about it a lot at the club in video as referees, because I always trained my athletes to referee as well, because I think it helped them understand the changes. So the biggest piece, the biggest takeaway for me was to treat this as normal, to treat it as something that was going to happen, to treat it as a challenge and as a part of their fencing.
I like that a lot. And I guess as long as you have strong fundamentals and you're an adaptable fencer, then that stuff shouldn't make a difference as much if you're expecting it, which you should be. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
To tie into what both of these coaches are talking about is this resiliency. You're coaching for resiliency. Of course, there's going to be change, as Ariana is talking about. She's setting up her students for this, anticipating this change. Self-confidence. We have to, as coaches, make sure that they don't lose their drive, and something that they've been told for several years is now something that they're going to have to shift and change. What is the opportunity? In this change, what can we learn about our footwork given these slightly different circumstances? What can it teach us about what we're doing and why we're doing it? And it's really an opportunity for discovery, not, oh gosh, something else. It's like, oh, how can we game this to our advantage? Let's use this. And if you can get your students and athletes excited about that, then it's not so devastating. And that's coaching right there.
Right. I like that a lot. That makes a lot of sense.
You know what I was thinking while I was listening to you guys, that actually this shouldn't be a surprise regardless of what the changes, because we make them be able to change during the bout depending on the opponent and the opponent acts.
Yes.
Exactly.
The only difference is that when the rules change, you have the time in the club to test those things. While in the bout, you gotta be very quick with response. So it's they kind of should be able to do it, but when they hear change of the rules, everybody's losing their mind. It's like, am I gonna lose my next bout? I think that's what it is.
That's funny. It's almost like thinking of fencing itself as your opponent, and you just have a long time to adjust. That's funny. I never thought of it like that before. So next question. In each of your opinions, what is the most important aspect of saber fencing?
I'll go first.
Saber fencing should be different. Oh, sorry. No, Jen, go. Go. You should have number. Who pressed the button first?
Because I was going to start at the beginning. The beginning. Saber is just easy at the beginning to put in the hand. You just have to touch and tag them. And in epee and foil, making the tip go. Wasn't this the question? Why saber?
Yeah,
well, we can do that first.
Yeah. Why saber? The attention span of someone beginning to get this tip on, oh, it was off target on the leg or the arm, that doesn't count. A kid doesn't understand. What do you mean? I hit them? I hit them first. And even using the saber with epee timing and tempo can be a great way to introduce the fun. And really each weapon, as you grow and evolve, has its own joys and pleasures. But the saber for beginning is very easy.
I think the rules are easier to be explained in epee because there's no right of way, two lights, one light, whatever you hit as long as it's body. I think that's easier to understand. For saber and foil is more tricky because of the right of way. So you see the parents are like, what? What do you mean by this? I mean, even their kids don't understand that. And I'm like, don't worry about it. Once you understand it, you're going to love it. But I think it's saber. I mean, why we chose saber, why we chose to teach saber, or?
Yeah, sure.
Well, because that's what I know, the feeling of, I might have a kid that is so talented in epee, but I don't know how to make him even better because I don't know. I mean, you know what I mean? In saber, I know like the speed and this. In epee, it's so much tactic. They have the time. We don't have the time. For us, it's like you have to trust your gut feeling. There's moments where you tell the kid, I'm coaching you, but I think you should trust your gut feeling. I might tell you, you go back, but if you feel you can score, which usually happens. You tell them don't go in the middle, they go in the middle, win the point. There's like, see, so it's like it's a gut feeling. It's, you know what I mean. That's why I don't know. That's my personal opinion.
I'm going to springboard this, you know, because you asked what was important about Sabre, and then we also went with why Sabre, why we taught it, and so I'm going to talk about kind of both of those things. It's a game. So when I teach young kids how to fence Sabre, I'm teaching them those tactics from the very beginning. My entire platform, not only just teaching them to touch and to hit with the weapon, is about games that teach them the tactics, the idea, the right of way. So everything for me is teaching them from the very ground up that basic tactical wheel. Can I attack? Can I make you miss? You know, can I go long? Can I do this long attack, right? So everything I do is designed for games to teach that, even if they don't have a Sabre in their hand. My footwork games, my glove games, it's all designed for me to teach the tactics of Sabre. So for me, what is so important about Sabre is the ability to come to the line and have a plan based on what's happened. Mm-hmm. And then as they get better, the second skill I teach, you know, and we're talking, obviously we can talk about distance, we can talk about footwork, all of those things are crucial. But for me, the next piece is tracking your bouts. What worked? What didn't work? I want those children to have the skill of knowing what they scored on and what they didn't score on the first time they walk into a tournament. Yeah. And what's fascinating is I'm still teaching that at the collegiate level. Mm-hmm. A topic we talk about when we come back from big tournaments and look at footage is, did you know what your best action was at 4-4? Happens a lot in collegiate fencing. We have 4-4 bouts. This is crucial for us. It's win or loss for collegiate teams. And I want them to know at 4-4 what worked and what didn't in that bout. To me, that's the foundation. Knowing the game and knowing what works and what doesn't. So that's my take on that.
I want to add something. When we first opened our fencing club, through the years when I was younger, everybody was saying, even in my country, you got to be talented to be a good athlete. You got to be talented. So then when we open our club, of course, you're looking for some athletic kids coming in and you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the next big thing. But what we're seeing, like, I mean, of course, now so many years in the business, that it's not the talent, it's more like the hard work, because sometimes the hard work kids are surpassing the talent. Yeah. And I tell even the parents, it's not about the talent, because we have parents like, my kid is 3 years old and is the most talented kid in the world. And I'm like, well, hold on your horses. Or my kid tried all the sports and we decided to do fencing. And I'm like, why did you quit all the other sports? Because we weren't good at it. I was like, what makes you think you're going to be good at fencing? Why do you think, like, you have to be athletic to be a fencer? You don't have to be the most athletic person, but you somewhat have to be athletic. And we've had kids that they don't know how to kick the ball. They don't know the proper way of walking, but they were so determined and so happy to be there compared to other lazy ones. And there's one thing that when you go to some clubs, regardless if it's a fencing club, you're always going to see the attitude of the good fencers and the attitude of other fencers. And I tell my kids in my club, I don't care if you won a world championship medal yesterday, everybody entering the club is in the same level. You respect everybody. You're starting from zero today again, because that's how the next generation is going to treat everybody else. Because what happens is, like, that's another reason why I always wanted to be a coach, is to show those things that I never, like, I was bullied and my coaches never cared about it. I'm not going to go and cry on their door on the office every time when this is happening, because you feel like you're weak, right? They're going to be like, you cannot take care of it. But this is something, the vibe is so important, so the kids feel comfortable about it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I always tell everybody, oh, sorry, Ariana.
No, it's okay, go. I was just going to say, I wish every kid in the country could hear what you're saying, because I and the other collegiate coaches I work with talk so much about how the kids we want are the kids with this ethic. Yeah. The ones that work hard and the ones that treat people well, because that's crucial for a team environment. So I wish I could literally scream what you're saying from a billboard.
I mean, the thing is that, you know what? I came to this country because I didn't really do much. I mean, when we were introducing ourselves, I came to this country when I was 20 years old. I was a national champion in Bulgaria for many years. Yeah, we didn't have that many fencers like in the United States, but I still had a competition. because of financing, my parents couldn't send me to many tournaments. So my mom, after surgery, she was coming. She had a major surgery. She could have lost her life. She came to the fencing club. I was still fencing foil at the time. I was dressing her up like in super bulky, like whatever. I don't even want to comment on those. And she was moving forward and back, and I was trying certain things. It was summer. It was like 100 degrees out there. And I was crying because I never had the people to support me and the coaches and the athletes, because my mentality was like, I wanted to train, I wanted to best in the world. And I knew there was certain things that were changing. And I knew from a young age that I always wanted to go to the United States, because I can give so much to the sport. And slowly I was realizing I cannot be the best in the world, but I was like, but I can be the best coach I can be to those athletes that need somebody like me to have been through all this kind of crap that made me who I am today. You know what I mean? And when we came here, and I'm like, do you know what? I never had this. So now when I'm talking to the kids, I'm like, I know how you feel. I've been there. I know. I came with $200 in this country. I had no money for anything. My parents took a loan so I can come to the United States. I cannot fail. I just cannot afford to fail because I'm failing my family. So it's kind of, every time you sit on the bench, I tell them somebody else is out there trying to beat you on the strip. And if they beat you, don't come to me and ask me what's the problem. First, think about how much you train. Even if you're at the club for 2 hours, my father-in-law, everybody knows him, Crystal. He's yelling so much. He's like, you cannot do this. You might be here for 2 hours, but you're not doing anything. So technically you're not here. So it's kind of, he's the, back in the days, the communist way, like Karkadi and like other, coaches that generation. And I told him, do you know what? Sometimes the kids in the United States are different. They're a little bit more spoiled. You got to babysit them. But the reality is, like, when you go to Europe and you see the European kids, they're hungry. They're hungry for what the American kids have. And the American kids have everything except the hard work. But they're like, that's okay. My parents have the money. I don't have to, whatever. It's like, it's so hard for us, even to this day, we've been here for 17 years, understanding this mentality. So it's like, I'm always like on to go. We might win whatever we were winning yesterday. Today, we've got to be starting from zero because somebody's working to beat us, right? It's kind of, that's how the clubs are going. And I tell every single club out there, thank you, because of you, everybody out there, we're getting better because we're trying to be on top of our game. We don't succeed because of us. We have competition. That's what makes us better.
What?
Yeah.
Nice.
What?
So my next question for you guys is, how do you approach teaching defense after the timing change? Like, I think that is the part of fencing that has become the most difficult since the timing change got wider.
For me, it's about teaching athletes how to be comfortable with keeping pressure on the attacker and creating openings. So for me, defense needs to be about making the attacker do what you want versus waiting for something to happen. Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest change. So instead of going back and hoping you're going to have this moment for counterattack, hoping you're going to have this moment for something, we need to be showing false counterattack to different targets, showing false opening, taking advantage of creating moments with false searches to create preparation, to create opportunities for distance, to create opportunities for parry, even creating those incredible moments for stop hit. So everything for me is about keeping pressure, keeping that close distance so you're really threatening to the attacker, and then getting reactions that you want. So that's the basis for everything I'm teaching right now.
The only problem is sometimes they're like, I don't know what I'm looking at.
So how do you teach them what to look at?
You know, the one thing I was trying to remember to say, because I knew this question is coming, is like, from my personal experience, I remember when I was training and I wanted to do something, but my physics didn't allow me to. Let's say I want to be super aggressive in certain actions. So I tell the kids, I know that sometimes you might like certain action, but if you don't get it, you don't see it, try some other action that you're going to be so talented at it. Because, you know, guys, from experience seeing your fencer might be so good at sky hooks, even though everybody knows your fencer does sky hooks, they're still going to find a way to do sky hook on the way back. So my advice is watch fencing videos as an idea, do practice bouting with the kids, knowing what you're practicing on, and it might take 5,000 times to try it. But make sure you feel it, not something that you don't feel the distance or you don't feel the sky hook and you're trying like 5 years to practice sky hook and then you're like wasting your time.
Yeah, For our club, our defense has definitely been forced to evolve. And it's creating calmness in defense for me. How can you relax when a tidal wave is coming over you of the attack, and relax and get your feet underneath you so that you can react appropriately, or give your attacker the confidence, oh, look at me, so vulnerable. Bah! No, you cannot hit me. So you have to create this feeling of, oh, look at me, out of balance, and oh, you can totally hit me. Ha, I was just kidding you. Yeah, it's my point.
You have to be in control regardless of what you do, forward or back. You have to be in control.
Yeah. Even if you don't like it.
Exactly. Yeah.
My
one of my coaches once.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of my sorry. One of my coaches once told me, if you're not affecting them, they're affecting you. Exactly. And that is something that I've carried with me the entire time that I've been a competitive fencer. So
I had a similar experience, Andrew. I used to train quite a bit with Aki Spencerell, and one day I got really frustrated because he kept on just killing me every time I attacked him. And he stopped and he said, Ariana, it's okay. I made you do that. I made you make that mistake. And we sat and talked about that for a great deal of time. And I never forgot that. In my entire coaching and fencing career, that moment sitting with him impacted me so greatly. I made you do that. And that's really how I've tried to educate my students from then on, how to make somebody do what you want. And I think that springboards really nicely to tactical drilling. You know, Tsvetelina talks about tactical drilling. You have to tactical drill if you're going to make that happen. It talks about what Jen talks about, creating a moment where you look a certain way, where you look vulnerable, or where you look like, look, this target is open. And so, you know, this combination of ideas is so incredibly crucial and so elegant in many ways.
Mm-hmm. I always say that there's, sorry, Andrea, I always see the bout going like one fencer dominates, then the other one. And it's kind of shifting. So I tell our kids, like,
adjustments and counter adjustments.
Yeah. Like constantly make sure you're dominating. You cannot score a super amazing touch, and then the next 3 touches you're like, and then you wake up, but then your confidence goes down, the opponent's confidence goes. Because I tell the fencer, it's never going to be the same. At least in my experience, when I fence, because sometimes I like to fence them, and I'm trying to understand, like, you know, the timing is changing. But one thing I tell them, it's significant. I'm not in the shape I used to be so many years ago. And I still hate to lose more than I like to win. But sometimes I win against those fencers who are training every day, and they're frustrated. And I said, do you know why you lost? Because I was smarter than you. You know, I'm not good in my footwork, but I made you play my middle game, and that's how you lost. And that's what they don't understand, is that you gotta find a way through the crack. Every single fencer has a weakness, but instead that I think they're so focused on their like good abilities, how amazing their attack is, and they really completely freak out. If somebody's good at attacking, do not let them attack you. It's like you gotta be like, it's so. I mean, I feel like the best fencers are the smartest people. I don't know how come I didn't become the best fencer.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
You must
so
be
this
pretty smart.
Actually. Yeah, this actually pivots really nicely into what I was going to ask next, which is how do you teach tactics in the middle? I know that I had a Bulgarian coach too, actually, and I know that their emphasis has always been on controlling your opponent in the center, which I think a lot of other mentalities do, but don't emphasize quite as much. So how do you go about teaching that dominant strategy that you were just talking about in the center?
Do you know, I have, so we had one of our girls, it was the perfect example. She's 27-ish. She's never been like a top level fencer or anything, but she still has her goals, of course, to get a B rating or whatever it is. So she was about to fence Division 1, and she was struggling so much. And I said, well, why are you trying to be faster than them in the middle? You have to realize they are faster. And instead of you being stubborn against the ref or you know, whoever is there, you're losing point after point. Be smarter. They come fast, you make them get away, whatever. They come slow, literally everybody's game. So this first Division 1, she was devastated, of course. It's a Division 1. I mean, this is not a joke. I wouldn't fence Division 1 right now. So so then the next Division 1, I started the same conversation. I'm like, do you remember what we talked about? Be smarter than the opponent. It's not about being faster than them. She won every single bout she had in the pool. And I'm like, well, but that's what the people don't realize. It's like everybody's trying to prove to the other person that, oh no, I can get this point. Oh, the referee screwed me over. All this. Everybody has the same referee. I hate the excuses of the referees and this. As soon as you start opening
Me
the
too,
box,
me too.
yeah. As soon as you start opening the box with the excuses, then literally, I mean, I think you should rethink your goals and what's happening, because every club has those fencers where it's too sunny, it's too this, I have cramps, I have period 24/7. It's like, I'm like, so what? You're not the only one. So are you gonna let this affect you? You're not gonna get the results. And every tournament is the same thing. And then there's a point where you get tired because they don't want to change. They are expecting you to do the magic. Hey coach, I'm coming for a lesson, so you fix my fencing. Oh no, how I cannot do the magic. You got to think about how should you get the parry. I mean, I show you certain things, but I cannot fix it myself. You know what I mean?
Are you sure you don't work magic?
I know, I'm trying. It's like, coach, fix my parry. Okay. You know what I mean? It's like, that's how it's adjustment. It's you cannot beat somebody in the middle if they're faster than you in the middle period. Like, what are you going to do? Jump, dive? I don't know. Why don't you be smarter and not waste your energy and do some actions that are counter actions of what they do?
So what I'm hearing is be smart, realize what your strengths and weaknesses are compared to what their strengths and weaknesses are, and just kind of try to use your strengths as best you can and exploit their weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of trying to be stubborn and beat them at the things that they're good at.
Oh yeah.
I'm super curious about your answer to this, Jen, just because I've watched I know your coaches, right? I know where you evolved from. So I'm punting this to you before I answer. I'm curious.
Sure. So where I am in my evolution of ready fence, it depends on who I'm talking to, how I explain it. But you have your preparations into this critical distance, into this timing. And you can either meet them, you can go past into it, or you can be patient and allow them to go into it. And the footwork configurations, how they match or configure with your opponents, can increase the likelihood of you seeing whether or not attack and preparation, attack with a second step, or just straight attack, or simple defense or compound defense is going to work. So this is where I am in my evolution about thinking about these preparations. Most fencers have 1, 2, maybe 3 preparations that they'll adjust into. And as you get to the elite level, you'll see not only do they have different preparations, but they'll have different timings of execution of these preparations and an element of surprise, which is very important. And so building up the confidence in my athletes with different preparations, depending on their type of opponent that they're fencing, is a lot of my focus right now. Being comfortable with not necessarily knowing and getting into a rhythm, which happens more likely in 15 touch bouts than in 5. And being comfortable in 5, just taking mad, strange risks, even if they don't necessarily make sense, and being okay with the win or loss, anticipating a longer term game. But it really depends on where the athlete is. At the base, you want to teach your fencer how to put pressure and keep that pressure on. And then it's like when to release that pressure to allow the attack to come so that you can take over, or put that pressure to create tension so you can attack into that tension. Mm-hmm. How's that for an answer, Ariana?
I love it, actually. You know what? It's great because this is really fun first of all, it's really fun for me, but my answer is really related. So I have always asked one question when I talk to my fencers, when I'm really just starting with them: why do we do a strong attack? Why would we take the risk to do just a really super strong attack off the line? And my answer to that, and this is sort of the framework, is to scare them to death.
Exactly.
Because if the fencer across from you is never afraid that you're just going to come at them hard, they have no reason to accelerate. They can just wait you out or play or prepare. And from that strong attack, then you can change everything. If they're terrified of you, all of a sudden, you can do tiny little steps and just wait and make them miss because they over accelerated. You
Yeah,
can
it's a very counterintuitive idea that your defense works better when your attack is working well.
That's right.
And that's something I tell people all the time. Like, I couldn't pull him short, and it was like, well, how often were you attacking? It's like, well, not a whole lot.
Yeah.
Well, that might be the reason.
Yes, that's exactly correct. You are exactly correct on that.
So, when you have this mentality that it's not just fast or just slow, that they are totally intertwined with one another, and that constant change of tempo and strength of attack is the whole development for that middle, I think it really becomes wonderful and elegant, because then you can do a strong attack. You can do tiny little steps and maybe take that parry or make them miss. You can pretend to do those tiny steps and hit them in preparation because they think you're going to go backwards. Mm-hmm. So it's this wonderful creation of a fabulous, elegant middle based on the idea that really you're trying to terrify the person across from you. And so that's really the way I've always thought of it.
And for me, the best bouts, when you have an athlete who's developed and accomplished, and they meet another athlete and they're not scared. When they respect their opponent, they know that this is going to be a challenge. They know they're fierce. They know they can attack. And I call it going into the match. When you see athletes just go into it, it's just like, that was a great bout.
Yeah,
it doesn't even matter who wins or who loses. You're just like, just the human experience of everyone just pushing was just fantastic.
Yep. And for me, as a collegiate coach, we are dealing with wildly different styles often, right? People who come from very, very different clubs. So for me, I'm trying to say, I don't want to change everybody's individual style. I want to give them ideas that they can practice, right? So I am not going to teach Jillian Harrell the same strong attack as I'm going to teach Margaret.
Yeah.
So it's never going to happen. So the goal here
towards the distance and different physics. And
right. Exactly. So you're teaching an idea, very much teaching an idea. We're trying to retain the individualness of somebody's fencing for me. So that ends up being sort of a really specific thing in collegiate fencing, is keeping everybody's individual talents while teaching them an idea.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree.
Makes sense. Yeah, for me, it's a lot about like realizing what you're doing and how it's having an effect on them. Because to go back to the example I used before about pulling somebody short has to be, or every action has to be based on something. And you're not going to pull someone short if they don't believe that you could attack them. And so once you've used the attack a couple times, then you can start setting up the pull. And every action is like that. Every action is based on something. So I always just tell people, understand how what you're doing is affecting your opponent, and then you can show them that same thing and do the opposite and draw that reaction in a way that's advantageous to you. And if you are paying attention to those things and you understand what you're doing and how it's affecting them, you can kind of build the bout from there.
Yeah, I feel you're planting the idea, but also you're helping them to think in a way. You're helping them. This is how you what's happening. It's kind of so for instance for the younger kids, even you see some older kids struggling, even though they might have so many medals and so much success, but sometimes on the way back they're going and their provoke is kind of slacking, and I'm like, if this provoke doesn't work for the opponent, maybe something's wrong with your provoke, because there's like, I do provoke, they're not missing. Well, maybe you're not doing it right. Maybe it's like they don't connect the things. I try once and it doesn't work, and I go, I suck and my opponent's amazing and whatever. It's like,
change the distance, change the area you're threatening, change how much acceleration it is. There's so much more that could go into something like that. But
that again goes back to how much work you're willing to put into it. I will not stop unless medical issue. They tell me I have to stop or something. Other kids are like, I think I'm kind of hurt. One bout you're hurt, the next bout you're fine. The next, it's like, what is it? You know what I mean?
And resiliency, because if you're doing this for many years and your opponent that you've always beat easily, all of a sudden is beating you. Mm-hmm. Are you like, oh my ankle, or are you like, oh, okay, I see you, thank you.
Oh, I love seeing stuff. I was like, this is opportunity. You see somebody injured. I'm not saying like, we're celebrating. No, I see it as opportunity. Sometimes you see somebody pulls a muscle, right? The opponent of your fencer. And your fencer is like, oh, I'm going to go slower because they pulled a muscle. I'm like, wait. What do you mean? They're giving you the hints. Their leg is not working. Make them move. And then, but they don't think that way. And I'm not saying it that
They're nice people. They're nice people.
No, I mean, you can be nice, but the bottom line is you gotta win the bout. You know what I mean? It's kind of. I'm not saying rugby on the handbrake there.
Yeah.
Some
Well,
person.
I had a really amazing experience earlier this season, you know, just talking about the middle. I had an athlete who fenced a former teammate of hers.
Yeah.
Exactly what she thinks you're going to do. You're going to show her exactly that. And at the last second, you're going to do something different. She beat her 5-1. And she looks at me. She's like, Ariana. And I'm like, yeah, that's the middle.
Yeah.
And that was the framework for our whole year.
But
Nice.
sometimes the kids are, I mean, kids are realizing that early on, some are realizing later on, some never realizes it. And as much as they're talented, fencing is not one of those sports where you run and you just have to get a better time.
Right.
And things sometimes are changing. Sometimes one season they're better. When they're about to go junior year in college, I think that's when they get hit the most because of the stress in school scores. So it's just changing so much. And we always know, no matter how good they are, they're going to have this kind of whole and mentally and the whole thing through their career.
So my next question is, I know two of you are club owners or coaches at a club, and one of you is a college coach. How have you affected how has your business been affected by the coronavirus, and how have you been trying to change what you're doing at your club or the school to adapt to that? Because I know this is a problem that everyone is facing, and a lot of clubs are scared about going out of business.
Yeah.
So
my answer is going to be the shortest because I'm probably impacted the least. But obviously, you know, not being able to have junior athletes and senior athletes, juniors coming to campus to visit, to see, this is a life-changing decision.
Exactly.
Where you're going to go to college. This is an extraordinarily important decision. And so, you know, not being able to visit, hang out with the team. So what I've really done is, one, I'm trying to, you know, reassure them. Know that I'm going to, if I want them, I'm going to give them a space, even if they have to wait to make their decision until September. I'm trying really hard not to pressure athletes into these incredible decisions without them getting a chance to visit the college they're going to go to and to see the team.
Totally.
And within the NCAA regulations, I've been doing, you know, Skype calls with these prospective athletes, showing them the campus, encouraging them to take online tours. So really that dependence on, you know, media to make connections, and then also trying to just offer up a resource instead of a point of pressure for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, the thing is that the biggest issue is that fencing is a sport where you need an opponent. No matter how many drills you can do with your mask, or maybe your father gets, it's like, so I saw the other day, we have a friend who is doing karate. Well, they're fine. They have a camera. They do some like kicking, whatever. We can do footwork match and stuff, even though when we're on Zoom, because we started using Zoom and everybody, whoever wants to be online, they can be online. We can do certain things, but technically you cannot correct every single move they do compared to the fencing club when they're all lined up and do the footwork. But the thing is that those are the times where we're going to get better in a way, like you're not going to let this crush you. Yeah, it's a crucial time for so many athletes, and not only fencing. The Olympic Games are, for them, is the worst. Those kids are training so much. They put their life on hold for 4 years. And now some of them might be in the top of their shape in their life, and they might postpone the Olympics to the next year. Who knows if they're going to be in the same shape? Who knows what's going to happen? So
they actually did announce earlier today that the Olympics are postponed.
Yeah,
2021, right?
So for us, it's like we got to keep them calm, but I tell them, listen, there's certain things we can control, and this is life, and there's certain things you cannot control. So stay home safe, but in the meantime, you can work out from home. Don't tell me you cannot. You can run as much as you want. Don't tell me you can. And don't tell me you have too much homework to work out, because that's not true. They're not giving you as much homework as they're giving, you know, when you're in school. You're not 7 hours in front of the computer for sure. So, definitely, they can watch the videos that they always say they don't have time to watch, especially their own fencing videos, because nobody wants to watch what mistakes they're making. Watch other YouTube channels. Read books about mentality, because when that's the trend, when the fencers do well, they're fine. They don't need to read any books. As soon as they start doing bad, coach, what was the book you told me about 5 years ago? I don't remember 5 years ago. But I think it's kind of late for you to start reading it now. You should have. That's what people don't understand. It's like, it's a whole kind of puzzle with things, where it's the mentality, the videos, and this, and you got to find a way to do it. It's an essential, but they don't understand it's an essential. So yeah, the clubs are affected financially, especially the smaller clubs, maybe even more, but everybody is affected. Every business is affected, and we got to push through it. And some parents understand that, and and we have parents who are saying, I can pay double this month. I know we need to help you guys and stuff. And others are like, we got to quit for 2 months. And you need to respect everybody's decision, because this is something that is all of a sudden affecting people, elderly especially. I mean, it's kind of, you cannot say, well, you got to give me 30-day notice. This is something like,
it's a strange time.
Sensitive subject. You don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But the bottom line is, of course, we as the owners, as the coaches, we're going to be the most hurt. And we need to realize that, and that's going to be okay. Because people don't think really, most of them, how are you going to pay? Because next month in May, what's going to happen? Okay, in April, you charge something. What's going to happen in May, June? What if you're closed for 6 months?
You don't know.
I'm not a doctor where I'm going to be in the hospital. It's a hospital, I mean, still making the money. I don't have a food, like a store with a grocery and whatever. But it's kind of, we pick that, so we got to deal with it.
Yeah, to echo the what can you control versus what you can't control. Unlike a rule change where we know what is happening, there are a lot of unknowns. So for me, taking it day by day, anticipating 2 months out and 6 months out, planning ahead for the community as much as I can, being as responsible of a club owner as I can to
excuse me,
bless you, ensure the community is intact and engaged. Many club owners are connecting through Zoom and through online webinars. I think it's really important to stay connected with the people who can. There are a lot of families who are experiencing crisis, and in a few more weeks, there are going to be more families. Our families are going to be impacted, and they're going to need us in a different way than maybe they've needed us before. So for me, I'm trying to practice taking care of myself as much as I can, taking care of my family, anticipating the needs of the club in 2 months and 6 months so that we'll be ready. And I want to remain calm and excited and accessible to our community, even if it's through this weird little screen that I'm still trying to figure out how to connect to people on the other side with. But it's an unusual time, but people throughout history have dealt with difficult situations, and we have this online tool that we're going to figure out. I know a Chinese coach has been in contact with me via one of my students who came up with a formula of sending out a video a half hour ahead of time, limiting the number of people to 16, watching each student perform the action, giving them designated practice time, and then having them video back. And that was after trial and error that this coach came upon this solution to help support his group. So hopefully that will help other club owners and other coaches figure out a way to connect and be engaged.
And now we're going to be the most creative with those like the videos and stuff, and everybody that don't want to be on the video will be on the video because there's no other choice. But I also feel like we have to be also like positive, not only for the fencers, for the families as well, the way Jen said, because it's stressful. Some of their businesses are the same way as our business, and
yeah, totally.
Kids been doing fencing all their life, and now it's this situation. But we're gonna find a way to help everybody, and we gotta kind of help each other. That's what it is right now.
Awesome. Is there anything else anybody wants to say before we split up?
Thanks.
What about the refereeing? Oh, for the refereeing, I wanted to say something that a lot of people are thinking like that some clubs will always, in general, when we go to tournaments and when there are always moments where refereeing is always kind of, there are days where this kid or this new girl that is refereeing is the most amazing ref, and you're like, oh my gosh, thank God, another new good ref. And there are days where you're like, what happened to her? So they need to realize, like, whoever is training the refs, whatever they're doing is, I speak for myself, but I'm sure that all the clubs will agree. We don't want to have advantage. We don't want anybody to referee and gives us the points, or we want just to be the fencers to be treated equally. I don't want my fencer to win just because they won last time or because their teammate is good or something. I want them to deserve the victory, but also I don't want my kid to be robbed where they're putting so much hard work. So what do you explain to them? Life sucks. But I don't want to explain that to them. I want to explain, well, you know, certain situation, 1 or 2 points, you know, well, the referee maybe didn't see it, but when you see the whole bout going like south, what are you going to do? Yeah, you kind of, there are moments where you're losing it because you're like, why am I doing it? It's, you know what I mean? It's kind of, so as long as USFA is learning a proper way of training the referees, and I know they cannot all referees the same because some referees feel certain things more than others, but not to be like stubborn to learn, I should say, you know what I mean? That's what's kind of, because I don't teach my kids to blame the referees. I tell them adjust to the referee. And Ariana has more to say in this because she's been a referee for so many World Cups and stuff. But that's my opinion from my club. We want like to be fair. It's all about fair for everyone.
I would say, you know, the only thing that I always say, and this is my plea, I have a moment, so I'm going to plea, but the best referees that we have in the U.S. over many, many decades of referees have been the ones who fence and who come from the clubs. Mm-hmm. So it is a very much combined effort between senior referees like myself, USA Fencing, and the clubs. And so my plea would be in this time, teach your kids to referee, get them out on videos. And I am going to be writing a proposal, which was delayed because of all this, to bring back a program by which athletes were paid to go basically referee 3 days and their expenses were paid and they could fence 1. Mm-hmm. And those programs were wildly successful in my generation of referees. And then they sort of went by the wayside. Right. But I really want to bring that back. I'm hoping USA Fencing will work with me to do that. But it doesn't work unless referees come from the clubs. And I got to tell you, 99% of the times the clubs are 100% the best referee educators in the world. And when I get somebody, no matter what the style of fencing or maybe the opinions, who's come from a club where they got good feedback and good criticism, and they're willing, and the coach says, you know, please listen to Ariana, or please listen, you know, to your colleagues. These are the best people we train. So that's really the one thing I have to say. I think most of us out there really want to make right call. Mm-hmm. My terror always has been that some mistake I made would make the wrong fencer win.
Absolutely.
100%. And, you know, I really, you know, I hope that in this time we can find a way to really train not only great fencers, but great referees. So
yeah, we need them.
And thank you, Andrew. This is amazing.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, I think thank you for creating this platform and doing all that you're doing. And connection is really important always, and definitely through this time. So thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate your efforts. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. I look forward to having this up in a few days.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.